What's up guys, so I made the game Wordle in Java, and in this video I'll show you how I made it and how you can code it yourself and also the ideas behind the code. So stick around if you want to learn about Java. So the main idea of this is just that you type in a 5-letter word, and then if you haven't guessed the word correctly, first it checks for the green letters, the ones that are in the correct spot and the correct letter, and then it just checks for the correct letters, so the yellow letters, that's this loop here. And then it prints those out depending on like if they're in the same spot and are the correct letter, if there is that letter, or if none of them are correct. So if you want to get the code, I'll leave a GitHub link in the description and you can check it out. And now I'll go through the details of exactly what everything does. So at the start, I just have these colors, the green, yellow, and default one. And I also get a scanner, so like to receive the inputs, and also make sure you have these imports here. So these two lines are not very important. This just gets the time so that I can tell you how long it's been like since you started playing. So I can tell you how long it took you and also tell you how many tries it took you. Then it just prints the instructions to type in a 5-letter word, and it gets a random word. So I'll just show you this, but this just returns a random 5-letter word. That's the answer. And then these are just character arrays, which is where we'll put our answer and our input. And here it turns this return random word into the character array. So answer at I is equal to the character at I. So then we also have this boolean done is equal to false. So when we've guessed the word correctly, this turns into true, so we don't keep looping. So this is the main loop of the game, and each time you loop through, it adds 1 to the tries, so we can count how many tries we've done. It also gets our input, and if the input is less than 5, then we ask for the input again. And in here you can also add later on if you want to add on. You can also add and is a valid word, and then check if it's one of the possible words that you can type into Wordle. It puts our input into the character array of the answer, and then if this returns true, then we're done. If not, we do it all again if you haven't guessed it properly. So now I'll go over this function. And once you're done, it just prints, hey, you found the answer in this many seconds and this many tries. So now this function here, this is the main meat of the code. It's the interesting part. So it just has this boolean that's correct, which is what we'll return after to check if we're done. And this just, like, I'll show you how it works after, but by default it sets to true. And then we have the temporary answer, which I'll show you how it works. And we also have an int array. So index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's for each letter. And depending on the number, 0 is gray, yellow is 1, and 2 is green. And this is just what we modify and how we keep track of which letters are which color, so we know what to print. So first we just loop through every single letter in our input, like 5 loops through this, and we just check if each letter at the input is equal to the answer at that same spot. And if that's true, we'll set the temporary answer, that slot, to a dash, just so that we don't read that spot again. And then for the color of that letter, we'll set it to 2, which means it's green. And if this is not true for every single one of them, we'll set correct to false, which means if any, or if at least one letter is not green, then correct is set to false. Then here, this is where we check for the yellow letters, the ones that are not in the right position but are in the answer. So it loops through this 5 times, goes through each letter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then for each letter, it loops through all the letters in the Sorry, my dog. It loops through all the letters in the answer, which means it checks if the input at J is equal to the answer temp at K, which this loops through 5 times. So it just checks if there is any yellow letters, so in the wrong position, but somewhere in the answer. And then we set that color for letter index slot to 1, which just means yellow. And then we also set that slot in the answer temp to a dash so we don't check it again. And then here, this is just where we print. If it's a 0, we print it with the normal color. If it's a 1, we print it with the yellow. And if it's or if it's 2, we print it with green. And then we print new line just to get to the next line. And then we return correct, which it's either true or false depending if we're done or not. So this last thing here is just a string list of all the answers in Wordle. I found it on the internet. You can just copy and paste it. There's an even longer one with the possible inputs, which I just haven't done yet, but let me know if you want to see that in a future video. So it returns a random letter times the list.length minus 1. So it just returns a random word from here, just any of them. And that's what we get. That's what we get up here at the top. So that's pretty much how this works. Let me know if you want to see more stuff, like how to make it with a GUI and add other features. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you in the next video.